Everyone, welcome to our annual RISE conference for 2026. I am Caro, one of your hosts today, and I would like to welcome Alex Argüelles. He is co-founder and CEO of Sell to Rent, a national PropTech platform that matches homeowners in distress with investors in the US through the leaseback model. His journey began in 2007 with some college friends where they had a very long experience learning the ropes of real estate and creating a big private equity company that had over 9,000 apartments and 200 employees that they owned and managed before his exit. Today, Sell to Rent serves homeowners facing medical debt, pre foreclosure, and any other situations, connecting them with investors who want to access off market inventory at a market value discount while having tenants in place. This means cash flow right away. And this is not only a huge win, but the most important thing overall is that real estate investing isn't just about buying assets, it's about solving human problems. Welcome, Alex.
What's up, everybody? Never seems to amaze me how weird it is to hear somebody else talk about you. Always, always extremely weird. But look, excited to get this thing going and talk to all the investors. Um, just super high level what we're trying to accomplish today. We are, we have a pretty unique seat where we are. We're in the middle of, we have thousands of sellers that come to us every single month from all over the US. We also have thousands of investors that register constantly on the platform. So we get kind of see both sides of the transaction market today. Um, we're seeing some different things happening in 2026 that we haven't seen in the past or in a while at least. And from our own perspective, it's kind of cool having real-time access to kind of the different angles happening constantly, and it kind of gives us an idea where the puck is going compared to where the market is today. So I'll do a short intro for everybody that I present. I create a presentation. I will go over it. There's a couple of experts that are going to be sharing their perspective and their knowledge, which is cool because they each have their own ideas of what's happening, and they all have the same goal, which is giving you real outlook of what's happening. We don't want to sell you anything. We want to keep it fun. We want to keep it real. And, we're here to interact with our community. We have a lot of active investors from all over the US, and we love interacting with them and growing with them and just, making their experience better. So with that being said, let's try to get into it. Okay, Carlo, let me know if we can see my screen. Can you see my
Everything looks
presentation?
good.
You're good?
Yes.
Cool. So at a very high level, we don't think the market crashed. We think it froze, right? And we see a lot of opportunities specifically right now when there's a lot of people on the sidelines. So prices are not really moving. Rents are staying steady. Vacancy is increasing a little bit. But overall, the price points are starting to move a little bit, not a lot, but they haven't skyrocketed on the way down, which we think is pretty cool. I always want to stay with rates because people are terrified about interest rates, and this is a high level chart of what tracking historical data. So if we go back to 2021, COVID pandemic, it was all the way down to 2.96%, and today we're sitting about 6.5%. Okay, the reality is rates have gone up a lot, and we'll get more into it. But historically, they're not very high; they're average. Now, people still have sticker shock based on this right here, on the, let's say, call it 3% interest rates, because a lot of investors or homeowners refi or acquire properties down here. But like I said, historically, this is, we're sitting right on average. The standoff, the great Mexican standoff. Why are we sitting here right now? There's not a lot of transactions happening. Well, like I said, interest rates are sitting about 6.5%, which is on average from 2025. There's a lot of inventory starting to hit the market. There's about over 800,000 homes listed for sale in the United States, which is more than double where we were in 2021. And when we're looking at just supply and numbers of supply, in January, we're about 3.8 months of supply. Today, we're at 4.6. So there's a lot more inventory starting to come in the market, specifically in the summer where a lot of people move. So we're starting to see the numbers uptick. On average today, homes are sitting on the market for about 2 months, which I think is a big telltale sign of what's happening with this standoff, is just expanding and expanding and expanding. And just this summer, 1 in every 5 homes, so call it 20%, are already experiencing price cuts. the lock-in paradox, right? There's a lot of people that bought homes starting, call it, after the great financial crisis, so 17, 18 years ago. And today, if they held or if you even bought at any point of this wave, you're sitting on a lot of equity. So it's estimated there's about $11 trillion in tappable equity today. Um, that's a lot of cash, but it's illiquid. So people are having this problem where they're equity rich but cash poor. About 43% of the home mortgages today own less than half the value of their home. So they're sitting on 50% equity plus. And I want to reiterate that, in the pandemic where people got frozen into the 2 to 4% interest rates, people have a mental shock around that. They don't want to let that go because they walk into a new home, they're going to be paying a bigger down payment and a lot more in a monthly payment. So equity rich, cash poor. Welcome to real estate. This is a quick high level on like the changes in rates. The average home right now in the United States, when you look at all 150 million plus homes, are, existing interest rates are about 4.4%. And if you buy a new home today, you're at 6.5, which is a 2% interest rate hike. What does that mean? That means it's an extra $500 on a $400 loan. And, it's a 49% increase than what they already have. So a lot of people are terrified to do this. The other elephant in the room for a while, for the last, let's call it, decade, has been Wall Street stepping in and, buying homes. There's a lot of legalities around this going on right now, but the reality, when you look at the big picture, is that only 2% of homes in the US are owned by institutions. That is nothing. That is a minute number, right? The one thing that we notice is a lot of these big private equity funds have stopped acquiring. They don't know what's going to happen with the legalities. They don't know what the market is going to bring. So they've literally stopped. They've turned into net sellers, and we'll get into that. But overall, they're not deploying a lot of money right now to acquire single family rentals, which we see as a huge opportunity. So as a local investor, as someone who has less than 1,000 doors, we see a lot less competition from our investors buying against those private equity groups by a lot. We don't see them doing anything right now. What has the difference been? Let's call it. Let's just look at a year-over-year change. Okay, so overall, if you look at the largest 8 institutional single-family landlords, they're turned into net sellers, not net buyers. So in 2025 Q2, they sold a net of 500 more homes than they bought. Just in 1 year, we see a 400% increase. Where last quarter they sold 3,000 homes, meaning that's a 5x increase just in 1 year. So, like I said, there's a lot less competition from professional investors. They're mostly selling. They're not really buying. What do we see as an opportunity? So, at a very big picture, from the highest level, there's about 14 million rentals right now in the United States, with about 25 million people living in them. But what's crazy from our perspective is a lot of times when someone does a flip or someone lists a property on the MLS, the end buyer moving into the property is typically a family or a first-time home buyer. Those people are not buying right now, right? So we see a lot of opportunity for investors. And overall, from the markets that we're tracking on the rental properties that we've done, we don't see a lot of vacancy. So that's a lot of expenses that you don't got to eat when it comes to turnover, vacancy, capex, all sorts of costs that that are not in the P&L necessarily, or you don't look at from the beginning. We got to look at the economy as a whole, as a macro, and then in a micro level. There's some markets that are ripping right now. So a lot of markets in the Midwest are going up over the last year. So Milwaukee, Cleveland, Chicago. We looked at Indiana, Kansas City. A lot of those markets have really are stable and have continued going up. But there's a lot of markets in the South and the Southeast that have continued on the way down. So we're looking at Tampa, Austin, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Naples. They're really retrieving right now. So when we look at the market, we look at it as a whole, but then we also go very micro. And then this brings me to my favorite quote on the entire planet, which has always been, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful, which is, we're seeing a lot of really good opportunities right now. We believe sellers are becoming a lot more realistic. They're starting to cut deals to get liquid. And us personally as a company, we're starting to get really excited for more transactions because we see investors getting better and better transactions, specifically because there's a decent amount of inventory, but there's also a lot of more realistic sellers and the rental rates haven't dropped. So when you look at a cash on cash return or an IRR return, people are starting to get better and better numbers, even with higher interest rates. And just to wrap it up, we have three experts talking today for you guys. Anish will become next. He's the president for the National REIA. He has a lot of really cool insights for investors. Ariana, she works at PropStream. She can give you a lot of information about the data and what they're seeing and how they're interacting. And then Marinda, who's our VP of Sales and Sell Trend, is going to really give you a breakdown on leasebacks and how we're changing it up and what new strategies are we using and what we're seeing from the market. Outside of that, let's get into it.
Thank you so much, Alex. First, we will take a short 4-minute break before we introduce our next guest, Anish Dave. And we are back. I would like to present Anish Dave. He is a nationally recognized real estate investor, entrepreneur, and educator with more than 25 years of experience in real estate lending and creative finance. As president of National REIA, he represents over 40,000 real estate investors and more than 120 chapters and affiliates nationwide. He is also the owner of BPM REIA, one of South Florida's leading real estate investor associations, where he has helped thousands of investors learn how to do off market deals, structure creative transactions, and build long term wealth through real estate. He has been involved in over $250 million in real estate transactions and is also the trusted wholesale and rehab expert for PAC, serving more than 2,000 professional athletes across 11 major sports. Welcome, Anish.
Thank you, Caro. Wow, what a great presentation Alex had there. And thank you very much for the introduction. I am very excited to be here with you virtually. And yes, I mean, Alex is right. I saw, what his presentation, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. So as Carl said, After my long introduction, I think I just found out that I'm pretty old. So I've been through multiple markets, from good ones to bad ones, the Great Recession, and what we're seeing right now. It's a great time to be in real estate. How many guys are to put in the chat just so I know that you guys are alive? How many guys realize this is a great time to be in real estate investing? Put in the chat. Give me a yeah, buddy, so I know that you guys are alive. And so, what I really focus on is off market properties. Real estate is very local. Also, it depends on what kind of property you're going after. Being in South Florida, we have something that's going on very different from anybody else out there. What we've seen in the luxury world, which I do not really touch, the luxury real estate investing is booming. I feel like what we're seeing for us in South Florida, we're going to become the next Dubai, with all these branded high-rise condos, and there's just a ton of money coming in here. The challenge is, for me as a real estate investor, it's too rich for my blood. And what do I mean by that? In 2008, I was part of that craze, buying pre-construction and buying these projects, and then the market crashed. So I like being in a safe space, and what I really like to focus on is single family homes. I'll do some townhouses and some low end condos. What you're going to realize that each market is different. So I'll kind of talk about our South Florida market first, and then I'll talk about the national market. So yes, there are a ton of deals. They're just off market. So I'll give you some general numbers in South Florida. Everyone says, wow, it must be booming. And at the same time, affordability is totally different. And what I mean by that is your normal person with your job working 9 to 5 is having trouble paying for their insurance and taxes, right? We've also had hurricanes in Florida, so our insurance is actually gone through the roof. And what we're seeing is it's hard to maintain these houses. So in the South Florida market alone, if you guys want to guess, put in the chat, how many pre-foreclosures do you think there are? And what we define pre-foreclosure, they've been served, right? The bank has served a list pendants. Put in the chat what you guys think are the pre-foreclosures in South Florida. And why you put it in there, I'm just going to tell you, there's about 38,000 pre-foreclosures in South Florida. Yes, you heard me right, 38,000. And guess what? How many are for sale? Less than 2%, right? So what does that mean? If you're going to your favorite real estate agent, and again, I'm a licensed agent, I love realtors, and there's no inventory if you're looking in the wrong spot, right? So for us, we go after off market. And the reason, as I mentioned, it's because of insurance, taxes. If you're on a set salary, what happens if the AC goes out, the roof, right? And these homeowners can no longer afford it. So I focus on the pre-foreclosure market. And what Alex is actually talking about also is a lot of these homeowners, I'm going to say about 80% of the people, especially in Florida, they actually have equity. They just can't magically come up with the payments, right? In our market in the last 5 years, the equity has grown, right? And again, if you're behind $20,000 or $30,000, you're not going to magically come up with those properties. The other thing about Florida is, and I'm not going to, it's not my quote, so I'm going to pick on a national speaker that Gene Garino, what he used to say when he used to come down to Florida, he calls it, don't get mad at me, he calls Florida God's waiting room. What do I mean by that? Is a lot of people retire in Florida. And unfortunately, this is their last stop. So now they pass away, and now they leave their properties to their kids. So we have a ton of transplants from New Jersey, New York, Chicago, all the above. And now, unfortunately, somebody passes away. The houses are not in great condition. They're not magically going to come down here and renovate the houses, right? They might not have money for probate. So we're seeing a ton of opportunity. The same thing is that we probably have in the Tri-County area almost 15 to 20,000 probates, and only 2% are for sale, right? So the key is off market. And I like what Alex was talking about was we talk about these big hedge funds, and these hedge funds, yes, they're big and mighty, and they're less than 2%. So, based on National REIA, the true investors are mom and pops like you and I, right? We're going in there changing neighborhoods. Not to get into politics, and also Trump passed that new bill where hedge funds are limited to buying only 350 properties a year, right? To make it more affordable. Originally, they only wanted that number to be around 50. Based on National REIA, we pushed for 350. It's again, we're the true landowners or landlords in the United States. It's people like you and I. So again, you got to go out there and go after properties that are not on sale with MLS or realtors. And what I could tell you in Florida, again, it's a little bit different. Prices have definitely leveled off, and we've been spoiled with appreciation. What I could tell you in the Midwest, right? If you're always looking for cash flow, what I'm going to tell you, it's always nice and steady in the Midwest. Meaning, if you're in Ohio, Michigan, yeah, the appreciation doesn't go up, but the cash flow is always the same. So if you're really building a portfolio, I got a lot of friends, and that's even through National REIA. Again, they're not seeing 20, 30% increase in appreciation, and their cash flow is slow and steady, right? Vacancy is at a minimum. What we have seen is renters are getting a little bit more picky in some areas, right? Meaning they want dog parks, right? They want updated stainless steel appliances. So they are getting a little bit more picky because there is more inventory, right? And the other challenge that I'm seeing is these homeowners, again, they think it's 19, I'm sorry, not 19, they think it's 2020, right? Where prices were going through the roof. And what I mean by that is if you guys were investing back then, you just needed to have a property and list it, and you got 20 or 30 offers, right? And now those same investors or homeowners are thinking that they could still get those prices. So that's not what they're getting. The other tools that you could use, right, are creative financing. So what do I mean by creative financing? We're doing deals subject to. And when I say subject to, we're taking over mortgages at 2 or 3%, right? And there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do creative financing. What I am going to tell you, beware, right? There's a lot of people teaching this nationally, and they're not teaching it correctly, right? And what I mean by that is the banks are getting smarter with all this AI stuff out there. They have hired a pretty big tech company to look after subject to deals. And not to get into subject to deeply, what that means is, again, you're taking over the mortgage. They're looking through public records to see if the property's been sold to an investor. And what does that mean for you guys? Due on sale. So again, you got to be an expert on this, whatever strategy you use. I know there's a ton of strategies out there. And what the other thing I could tell you is the people that have been really good investors, they're crushing it right now. I promise you, it's the newbies, right? You were investing 21, 22, you made some money, you were a terrible rehabber, and you made money because prices went up. So what do I mean by that? The rehab should have took only 4 or 5 months. It took you 10 months. The prices went up, you made some money. So as prices level off, you got to be better at your skill set. Be conservative on your numbers. And I still believe in real estate, right? And the interest rate doesn't matter. It's about cash flow. Don't worry if it's 6% or 7% or 8%. If your numbers are done correctly, right? You're actually figuring out your exit strategies. You got to have multiple exit strategies in this business, right? And it doesn't matter if you want to be a wholesaler, a rehabber, or you just want to build a long-term portfolio. And there's some other cool things with the baby boomers, right? They have a ton of properties. And I thought this was really interesting on the National REIA side is that, a lot of people, they're buying 40 and they have a portfolio and they want to leave it to their kids, right? They're saying generational wealth. I want to leave it for my kids. What we're finding nationally, this is most kids do not want the properties. That is kind of crazy to me, right? They don't want the properties, they want the money. So I'm not going to pick on, the millennials or Gen Z or any, but I was really surprised that they didn't really want the properties. So now these investors, right, they're stuck with these properties. So guess what? They are open to creative financing, right? They don't want to get hit with a big tax bill. They love the monthly payments. So yes, you could seller finance. You could do lease options, right? You want to build more strategies out there. And again, each market's different, right? What South Florida is different or Florida versus the Midwest. I know prices are increasing in the New Jersey, New York area in the suburbs. Like people are starting to fight for houses up there again. So it's definitely different depending where you are. Phoenix, ton of inventory, it's leveled off. So again, there's the general view of real estate, and then there's your local market. So it's a great time to be in real estate. Pick a strategy. There's a ton of money out there, right? Alex was actually talking about $11 trillion in trapped equity. It's your turn to go out there, work on your skill, and talk to homeowners. One of the last things I will also leave you with is I love all the AI stuff. I love it. And what I'm going to tell you, this is still a people business. Go out there and talk to homeowners, right? Again, the AI is fantastic. I use it a ton in my business. And at the end of the day, people still want to trust you, who they selling the house to. So you still have to learn that skill set. And I tell the world, it's an and world, right? You could do well and fix problems and make a lot of money. I'm not sure if I went over my time a little bit.
No, Anish, you're actually perfect.
Okay.
If anyone has any questions, please. Oh, already got one question.
Yeah, what's the best
What?
strategy with with
Mm-hmm.
low cash? So wholesaling, right? Here's the cool thing is if you get something under contract, right, you have interest in the property and you could either sell the contract to another investor. And that's what I did when I didn't have much money. When I got crushed in 2008, so I had to build myself. So I started wholesaling first. Creative financing is great. And the challenge with creative financing is that you have to really understand it. And now you got to explain it to a homeowner how you're going to take over their mortgage. So it is a tougher skill set. Again, it's a great way to get his wholesaling and also to build great partnerships. There's a lot of people out there with money.
Perfect. Anish, you also mentioned that you recommend people to go after off-market properties. Could
Yes.
you explain that to an investor that's just starting out?
Yeah.
Why off-market and why it's better than a property in MLS?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So what we consider off market, right? Not listed with an agent. And the whole job of an agent is to get the highest price, right? That's their whole job. What happens sometimes agents, and I'm going to use this loosely, may not have the best interest for the seller. And what do I mean by that? Maybe they don't understand creative financing, right? They want to figure out how they get paid on it. And the example I use is to get great deals. Imagine you're going to go buy a car and you go to the Lexus
Mhm.
dealership and they advertise that one deal. You go there and Carl, you're so smart. You know how to negotiate and you'll get a pretty good deal on it versus other people out there, right? Not the greatest deal. It's a win-win to an extent. But imagine you're every day you're going to work and you pass this house and in the car part there's this Cadillac with flat tires and you know it hasn't moved for months. And now you knock on their door and you say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I see this car's been sitting here for months, right? And what are you doing with this? And listen, don't worry about fixing it. I'll fix the flat tires. I could take care of changing the title and I pay cash. Don't worry about me getting a loan and we can move that fast." So it takes away people in between the agents. And a lot of times what you really realize is a lot of homeowners just for whatever reason don't like agents. They don't think they work hard and I believe they
Okay.
work hard. And the deal is, they're thinking they didn't earn their commission. So you want to talk to the homeowner and find out what their true need is. And that's where the money's at.
Okay, amazing. We actually got a comment that sub 2 is the way to go, but not in Texas or Florida. They are flipped. What do you think of this? Do you
You know
necessarily
what? There's a
agree?
lot of subject to in South Florida, in Florida in general. It depends on the market,
Hmm.
right? And it depends on the terms. So I've done subject to, and for you guys don't know, that means taking over the mortgage, not assuming. If you ever tell someone you're going to assume their mortgage, you will be in some major trouble. It is taking over the mortgage. There's a right way to do it. And it just depends on pricing, right? So it depends on what interest
Absolutely.
rate, and there's a lot of variables. And I have a lot of friends that are investors that are doing subject to in Florida. Yep, absolutely.
Amazing. So you did mention that something that's going on is that many homeowners think the prices are the same as in 2020. What do you think led to this market change? Because now in 2026, we're seeing a huge change in everything, market
Well,
value, prices. So, why do you think this is going on, and why should investors consider all of this information?
yeah, and the thing is, like, I think the change is obviously with interest rates, right? When the pandemic happened, everyone was scared. Me too. I literally rehabbed a house using WhatsApp, right? And the house was
Uh-huh.
literally down the street. My wife wouldn't let me out of the house, so I had to do this that way, and I was panicked. And because of that, we had, supply problems, right? Windows were taking 8 weeks, 10 weeks, all the way through. And now, I think, and again, I'm not going to really go into politics. I think people see a better promise, and there's been a lot of free money out there. So people are loosening up on movement. And now the people are saying the same thing. There's a lot of equity. I want to get my money out. I'll maybe, downsize my house and do something else. Or I've also seen a lot of people, move out of the country, right? Because
Hmm.
of, maybe medical insurance, cost of living in the US. So for investors, as long as the cash flow, don't be emotionally involved. The numbers are the numbers. Don't go by what you feel, right? I feel the market's good. Well, with data today, what the real numbers should be. So again, it's a great time, and do your own research, right? Again, there's enough data out there that, yes, use your realtors, use your local REIAs, use their research, and then go out there and do the work out there to find out.
So, should cash flow be a priority or appreciation for Sunbelt markets?
So for me in general, so I always say the coast. When I say the coast, I say the coast of the United States, the East Coast, the West Coast. I'm talking about California. We
Hmm.
always have appreciation, and our cash flow is not great. It's just the way it is, right? It just depends on what you guys feel, right? So through National REIA, one of our chapter members, she owns, I want to say, close to 85 houses in Ohio, right? Free and clear, great cash flow. She probably bought them for 40,000. They're probably worth 60,000. The challenge, right? So she's always saying, "Hey, I got all this great cash flow." The challenge is a roof is still a roof, right? So is she really adding those capex expenses? So you got to figure out what your plan is. I'm a big believer in not going negative cash flow. So that's what really hurt me
Hmm.
in 2008. I had all these properties with a ton of equity and appreciation and negative cash flow, and it was a domino effect when the market crashed. So I'm a big believer in cash flow. I don't really go on projections. I'll pay what the real numbers are to the seller today. And again, you want to really push that and be confident on your numbers. You got to have
Okay,
multiple exit.
great.
Yeah, you got to have multiple exit strategies.
Yeah, amazing. Now, for all the investors that are watching this now, we are talking a lot that in Florida there are people in retirement. There are a lot of properties in probate, but very few are on the market. How do you usually target these properties? How can these investors be like, hey, I want to find a property like this in Florida? How can they look for it? How can they start their investment strategy?
Yep, absolutely. And I don't want to steal the thunder of the other guest that's coming on. If your guys aren't using PropStream, they are fantastic. There's a lot of software companies out there that actually pull this data for you. Carl, you're young, so back in the old days, I actually had to go to the courthouse, right? And
Okay.
I had to get the files and see who was in probate. You no longer have to do that kind of stuff. There's other companies like REI Black Book, they're using AI. So all the data is already there. The point is, you have to go out there and have the phone ring. There's only a couple ways to do it. It's got to be outward, meaning you have to either knock on doors or cold call, or you got to spend money on mailings one way or another. These people are out there looking for solutions. Also, your local RIAs, there might be probate attorneys, bankruptcy attorneys, all the above. Again, this is truly a relationship business, and this is how you scale.
Yeah, thank you, Anish. We have another question.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
Do wholesalers care about relationship building over the long term, or do they approach it as a one time event from your experience?
Yeah, so for me, it's all relationship building. So even the houses I wholesale, or if I work with the wholesalers, I've taken deals where I made a little bit less on the wholesale assignment fee. And the reason I do that because there were no drama. So depending how long you've been in this business, you're going to want less drama as number one. Also, if you do something wrong or something underhanded, I'll use that analogy. Everybody knows, right? So you will be blacklisted in that market. The idea is to make it as easy as possible, whether you're co-wholesaling, meaning you're selling someone else's property, or you're a wholesaler yourself, right? And I'll give you the example. I have a guy that literally they buy probably about 100 to 200 houses a year. They literally have teams driving around. So I will send him a property. He'll call me back and say, "Hey, is it on lockbox?" I'm like, "Yes, it is. What's the code?" Within 2 hours, they're already looking at the house. And what we do is 0 day inspection and $10,000 down. Within 3 hours, I already have a wire, right, of a $10,000 deposit. As long as the title is clean and the lien searches are clean or everything we agree on, it's a done deal. Could I have made maybe an extra $2,000 or $3,000? Maybe. Again, if you're doing volume, you really want to work with the same people. And what I'll tell you, if you're a beginning wholesaler, you only really need 3 or 4 good buyers, and you'll do really, really well.
That's a great tip. Yeah, so, you know, we have this whole market that is changing. You're giving amazing tips right now. Is there anything else in your experience that you would like to share? Is
Yeah.
there a kind of property that you think people should look out for? I know there are right now leaseback properties or vacant at
Mhm.
closing. In your
Yep.
experience, which has been better to buy, better to look out
So,
for?
so for me personally, I like vacant at closing, especially if they're in
Okay.
pre-foreclosure. And the reason is they're used to not making payments, and
Hmm.
now they magically have to make payments. So it gets a little challenging. Number one, and my advice is I have a couple of things. Is I call it shiny object syndrome. What do I mean by that? Today I'm going to wholesale. Tomorrow I'm going to rehab. Monday I'm going to buy a strip mall. Tuesday I'm going to do a multifamily. Uh, Wednesday I'm going to do subject to. Thursday I'm going to do a lease option. And the challenge is you're going to be too wide, right? So I call it the Cheesecake Factory syndrome. If you guys, how many guys have been to Cheesecake Factory? So my wife and I, right? I go there. The menu's 25 pages, right? I always say, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. The waiter waitress comes back to me. I get the orange chicken and the jambalaya every single time. What do I mean by that? It's too much information. It's information overload, and at the same time you're not an expert on anything. The other thing I could tell you is you just got to go out and make offers. I work with well over 2,500 professional athletes. They're 0.001 in their field, and they're just like you, especially like a newbie. I'm afraid to make an offer. I'm like, you're 350 pounds, you make millions, and you're afraid to put a contract with an inspection period and make an offer. So my advice is the only way you're going to get good at this is repetitions. Every successful investor, they've had some ups and downs. You want to limit your risk. And I also believe that you should always have a mentor, someone that is in a better situation than you're at. And, they've been through the ups and downs and they invest today, right? I think investing today is also important, not 20 years ago.
Thank you, Anish. Our time is unfortunately up.
Okay.
You've been amazing. It's been great tips so far. If you like to leave maybe your contact info
Yeah.
on the public chat so they can reach out if they have any other questions. Guys, we're going to take a very short 5-minute break. We will have after this PropStream come up. It is the platform that Anish recommended. It's an amazing platform. Please stay tuned for the next 5 minutes.
Thank you.
And we are back. I would like to do a very quick intro to Ariana Castro. She is the product specialist at PropStream. For nearly 4 years, she has helped empower partners and customers to grow their knowledge and make the most of their real estate journey using this platform. Now, for those that do not know PropStream, it's one of the leading real estate data and analytics platform that provide investors, agents, and brokers with tools to identify property leads, analyze market trends, and streamline their real estate investment strategies nationwide. They are known for having the most up to date real estate data on more than 160 million properties in the US, helping investors find high potential leads in minutes. With their software that has comps, calculators, demographic data, AI, and more, PropStream provides a very accessible data to turn leads into hot deals. Welcome, Ariana.
Thank you so much, Gato, for that intro. I'm so excited to be here, y'all. I think this is a really great opportunity to just really expand your real estate knowledge, right? I think that's the most important thing that you can do for yourself is always come in with that learner cap on. I think every day we can learn something new. We're students for the rest of our lives. So again, really excited to be here. I also just want to do a quick shout out to Anish. I got to join in a bit earlier. He had some amazing advice. So, let's do some applause in the chat for Anish because that was an amazing segment for this event. But yeah, like Gato was saying, I'm gonna just go in to PropStream and just show y'all, some of the ropes of how you can use this software to essentially start and end with your real estate workflow. So I'll be sharing my screen. And of course, if you have any questions along the way, put them in the chat. I'll try to see if I can answer them as I go. If not, I will have, some minutes at the end to pick some questions from the chat, see if we can answer all of them, and that way we can get started. But all right, so here folks, this is the software. So whenever you first log in, you are going to see this map appear. And I already started building a search, but we can definitely clear all, make room for another search to begin. And with the PropStream software, folks, this is going to be where you have the ability to search nationwide. So if you want to look for leads in your county, in your city, by all means, you definitely can. But if you want to go, cross country, you can do that too. So I really like to highlight that. And with that nationwide data, you are getting not just county record data, but MLS data as well. So you get the best of both worlds in one place. And so what you're seeing here is our search page. Typically, whenever you're starting your workflow, of course, we're trying to look for those leads, right? So we definitely want to start with the search, and that way we can look for those niche listings and also build that scenario, those situations that we want to look for, whether it's the homeowner themselves or the properties as well. So here, let's go for our market today, perhaps Austin. But as you can see here, you can look for different types of markets, whether it be county, zip codes, as well as even a draw tool that we have here in the left-hand side. So you're more than welcome to really go in and look in that specific market that you want to zone in on. And once you do, you will receive these results. You'll be able to look at map cards and check out more information about those different properties, right? But all in all, like I said, let's go back to niche listings, right? Niche leads, because not all properties are going to benefit you, or you are in turn not going to be able to help them in their particular situation, right? Depending on your real estate strategy, you are going to want to look for leads that are going to fit your criteria, right? That's where the filter menu comes in to play. This is where we have over 165 filters to really help you, and I'm going to keep saying it, right? Niche down. That is definitely what you're going to want to do here because, of course, you have access to millions and millions of properties here in the United States. But at the end of the day, you definitely want to niche down to look for those leads that are going to be useful for your real estate success. So here we have our lead list. These are our most popular filters that you can utilize. Here, for example, maybe we could look into tired landlords in Austin, Texas. And for those who may not know tired landlords, well, here I got y'all. We have our specific glossary term is that tired landlords, they're going to be non-owner occupied properties such as rentals, right, where the current ownership exceeds 15 years. So these are people that, have had to deal with being a landlord, a property manager for 15 plus years. They are typically wanting to offload this property. This is something that gives them motivation to sell, right? So we can start off with building a list with that foundation. And then in here, we have our different categories where you can specify the property types you're looking for, how many bedrooms, what type of particular characteristics you want for that property you're looking for, right? Here, I really like to highlight our PropStream intelligence. This is our AI model in the PropStream software. So this is going to be the learning algorithm that goes in. And what I like to say is just it makes your life easier because here, for example, with property condition, instead of you having to take the time to look at every single MLS photo of every single lead, now you have this property condition filter you just utilize, and it'll look at those photos for you, look at those conditions of the physical structure, and that way you can make a more specific lead list, right? Maybe, since you perhaps are wanting to find your next rental opportunity, you could use the overall property condition. You're not looking for your next fix and flip. All right, let's put minimum property condition. Let's do average. That way, it's just minor little projects of making it look prettier, right? So here, definitely check out the PropStream Intelligence because that's really going to help you really minimize that time of searching for those leads. And then I know we're always talking about, hey, I get this question a lot is that, hey, Ari, how can we get ahead of the competition? What can we do on PropStream to find those motivated sellers that, or buyers, right, that want to look for someone to work with? How can I get in touch with those motivated leads? Well, I would say first and foremost, I mean, here what I would recommend is looking for off market leads. On market, that means they're on the MLS sites, they're already getting eyes with those different sites, right? If you're able to look for those off market leads, that's giving you a next step ahead of the competition, right? You're able to look for those leads before they even post about it, before they even get on those MLS sites. And that way you're the first one figuratively at their door, right? So definitely recommend using off market if you're looking for a leg up on the competition. But as I said, definitely go through these filters as you see fit. We do have many different types of filters, over 165. So it really is up to you and that particular owner situation you want to create and or the property condition as well. So I'll just put in some remaining filters here. Maybe I'll put that I only want to work with those tired landlords that are individual owners and that they have 70% or more equity. All right. Well, now I can see my results here on the map. I can zoom in, check out those property cards I was talking about, right? And if I want to look further into a property's details, I can click on this details button right here. That's going to give me the ability to open up the property details page. This is where you're going to have access to all of the property details regarding this lead. So kind of think of this as like the property portfolio. You'll be able to see all the public record data as well as any MLS data if applicable. And so if you see here, folks, you're going to be able to check out these different tabs where you can see more in depth the property details, such as, the lot area, what type of legal or location description it has. You can even see tax assessment information, HOA, right? All this good stuff to keep in mind, especially when you're going in and looking for your next opportunity, right? Am I gonna be able to, take that in consideration? Okay, HOA, it does have a fee. I need to, keep that on the back of my head that this is something else I need to think about in terms of owning this property, right? And then here, like I said, MLS details, you'll be able to go in, check out what was the latest listing, as well as see that history. What was going on with the property on the MLS? Did they have a lot of fails? It looks like this one they kept having to adjust last year, right? Here, you're able to see that information of the property's MLS history. And we do have a comping tool. This is going to be really helpful for you through that property analysis, right? Because that's typically what comes next, right? You search, you niche down, you look for those leads, and then you start analyzing these potential opportunities, right? So the comping tool here is definitely one of those tools that we highly recommend to use because this is going to help you through those conversations of working with the homeowner. Perhaps, whenever you're going in and offering the deal, this is going to give you more information about what you can put in as your offer, what's going on with the property, what's going on with the neighborhood, right? So definitely come in here, check out the comping tool. You can even utilize the different data sets. I recommend that if you are in a disclosure state, utilize both. That's the best of both worlds. If you are in a non disclosure state, I'd recommend using the MLS data sets because that's going to give you the accurate pricings of what occurred regarding those sales in the non disclosure states. And once you do that, you can utilize these different comping filters. Here, like for example, if maybe you're looking in a rural area, I know I grew up in a small town. Sometimes the same parcel will still expand in half a mile. That's the default distance. Hey, let's do 3 miles instead, just to take that into account that these parcels are huge, right? So definitely come in here, utilize the filters, and then as you can see, your results remain on the right hand side. And this is where you're going to be able to save these comps to your PropStream account. You can also view and save a comp report. So just with actions, view comp report, that's going to give you a free PDF comp report that you can share with your business partner, your assistants, or hey, even the homeowner themselves, right? When you're in that conversation of, well, hey, why are you offering me X amount? Well, Mr. John, this is because the average sale price was for 798. With yours, it is average a smaller from the comps. It's also going to need some repairs, et cetera, right? It's just something that you can have in your pocket when you're ready to have those conversations with the homeowner. And then going back to that property condition, right? This is something that you can check out here as well with the intelligence and with the demographics as well. Again, just building that report for yourself of what's going on here with the property, what's going on in the neighborhood. These demographics can help you through that process, right? Of being able to see who's living there, what's going on, right? In terms of the population by age group. Here, it looks like the majority are 40 to 60 years old. Okay, keep a mental note that whenever you're reaching out to these homeowners in this particular area, maybe let's think about marketing, right? Maybe they're not going to be as open to answering a text. Maybe they're going to be more open to those old school type of marketing, right? Of answering phone calls, answering letters or emails, right? Just more things to think about whenever you're building that strategy for these particular leads, right? So definitely take a look at those demographics. But so on with these different tabs, you'll have the tax info, you'll even be able to see linked properties of that homeowner, right? Again, just going back to building that rapport, right? Of, hey, you have over, let's see, I think in total they have 10 properties, right? That is something that, not a lot of people can handle, especially as an individual owner. Hey, you've been doing this for 15 plus years. This is something that, right now the, you know, the unit isn't being occupied. It hasn't been occupied for months. Is this something that you still want to take on that you're having an open mortgage or now you're having tax liens because you can't afford to keep this property in your portfolio, right? So again, it's being able to see the whole picture of the lead of not just the property characteristics, but the situation the homeowner's going through, right? What are they going through financially? What is going on with the property as well? And all in all, you'll be able to see that information in this property details page. And what I really want to highlight today is that, especially for those who are really trying to go through as many leads as they can, as being able to go through that property analysis as quick as possible while still being able to have the correct data in front of them, definitely take a look at this purple button over here. This is the PropStream Intelligence Assistant. You can move it around and even make it bigger if you need to, but this is going to give you the breakdown of these homes, of these properties, and you'll also be able to chat with it. So let's say, for example, we're thinking about this particular property for my next Airbnb opportunity. Let me put in, is this a good opportunity? I can spell today, for an Airbnb rental. All right, so we're gonna ask that to the assistant. And then once I do, and it starts letting me know, like, hey, Ari, let me give you a breakdown. It's gonna give me the snapshot. It's gonna give me the pros, the cons, and the overall analysis of this property, of whether or not it could be a good Airbnb tutorial. So again, this is something that you're able to go in and check out and really minimize that time for that property analysis. So this is also something that you can even print out and be able to share that, with your team, your business partner, whatever the case may be. And here as well, I also did want to highlight that we have different calculators that you can utilize. So this is where you're able to go in and check out the tools button. For example, for any of those wanting to see if this property is a good rental opportunity, you can check out the rental ROI calculator. Because all in all, it's not just about purchasing the house and then putting it for rent, right? There's many different variables involved, right? Not just the purchase price, but hey, improvements, as well as how many units are you going to be putting in this. And it really does break it down. I love this calculator because you can go in to those nitty gritty details of the financing, the revenue, and those operating expenses, right? Like what I was talking about, the HOA, the utilities, how much are taxes going to be for year to year, right? And as you go on and fill these in to your particular scenario, it will be changing that pricing of the annual cash flow, how much are you going to be spending a month as well as annually. And as you can see, that'll give you the annual rent that could be going out, the down payment, the total ROI. And as you can see here, we do have different ways of checking out that year one operating statement, the pro forma, and my favorite, projections. Based on your current situation, how much will you be making every year with that annual total ROI, right? So this is something that you can go in, utilize, and it's for free, and you can also print it out if need be to share with your teammates or anyone else. Then for my fix and flip analyzers, definitely check out that fix and flip analyzer here. Pretty much the same thing. It'll give you an itemized total, and you'll be able to save these listings to your account. And once you do, you can go in and skip trace with PropStream. You'll be able to also start marketing campaigns. We do have over 4 different tools that you can utilize. So again, all in all, with PropStream, it is something that you're going to be able to go in and use from start to finish, of being able to search for those leads. You're able to analyze those properties and then connect with those homeowners with our marketing tools, and even transact, because we do have a partnership with LoanGeek that you can apply for your loans, for your financing, right? So definitely a way you can not have that stress of multiple software and just utilize PropStream for your real estate needs. But yeah, thank y'all so much, folks. Appreciate ya.
Yeah, thank you, Ari, so much. We actually have a lot of questions.
Oh, awesome.
So the first one is in PropStream, can you create AI generated prompts that don't require slicing or adding filters?
Yeah, so with the prompts itself, if you're referring to the assistant, that would be something that you can utilize wherever you have the property details page. So sure, you can use it here in the search page, but if you already have your list either saved in PropStream or you want to come import it in, just open up that property address. And as you can see here, as long as you're in that property details page, you can open up that assistant and be able to put in your prompts, see what you need to learn about for your property analysis.
Perfect. And how often is the data updated? For example, is foreclosure live? Is the skip tracing legal? How can we know if there are any DNC in the list?
Yeah, so our skip tracing does scrub for DNCs. So I'll pull up a little example here real quick. As you can see, whichever phone numbers are in that DNC registry here in the United States, you'll be able to see that here in your results. And that way you can make a more, uh, conscious and aware, you have that awareness, right, of how you want to contact these leads. And then regarding the updates of the data in the system, our system does check for updates 24/7, but I would say it does break down into a couple of different factors, right? So, one just being that in terms of the county records, that is going to be based on the data set that you're looking at, as well as the manpower of that county that you're looking into as well. Because, for example, some of them don't have the same manpower, right? Unfortunately, with smaller counties, it will take them longer to update their records because they don't have as many people working there versus, let's say, LA County, right? And then also, depending on that data set, for example, tax delinquencies, right? That is only updated once a year through the county. So therefore, you're not going to be seeing that be changing every day, right? It's only whenever they're changing that annually. Once they do that in their system, kind of like a domino effect. It'll update our vendors and then it'll update in the system once that's available.
Perfect. We have another question. Once I have a list of motivated sellers, what are the recommended next steps to follow up and market to those leads?
Yeah, looks like John Martinez. Perfect. So I would say what we recommend is again, since you're able to do it in your PropStream account to complete that workflow, definitely skip trace. That way you can find that contact information as you can see here with like different phone numbers, such as mobile, landline, other, and even emails. And from there, you're then able to go in and start those marketing campaigns, right? You can go in, start a campaign, and this is where you're going to be able to use our email campaigns, postcard. We even have free landing pages that you can create per campaign. And for those who have our PropStream Connect, we do have dialer campaigns. So we do have an in-house dialer. You're able to go in, check out the leads you're wanting to call out, and that way you can have it in one place and you'll be able to put that information in the property details. As you can see here, every time you update that, it will be located in the property details page as well.
Okay. We've actually got a really good question here.
Mhm.
What are the best practices for skip tracing? It seems like this is the most difficult part of searching properties. How can we deal with current cold calling regulations?
Yeah, I mean, what I always recommend is do your due diligence. Definitely go in, check out, your state laws, your state regulations regarding any type of marketing you're going to be doing, right? So that is going to be definitely something that you want to do before you start calling out, right? Just making sure that you have yourself covered and protected before you're going to start that marketing. In terms of skip tracing, we do have it from the top national vendors. So we are able to go in and get that information for you from those vendors, and they're able to have, like I said, the DNC scrubbing. It also has litigator flags, and you're also able to see that contact priority. So that way, once you're ready to rock and roll, you've read your regulations from your state, you can see those phone numbers from the first to the bottom as listed from currently recent to least currently recent. So that way you're able to go in and have the likelihood of connecting and building that rapport with the homeowner.
Amazing. We've got one last question. Investors usually don't have a lot of time. There's a lot of information out there. What do you usually recommend that they do in this platform to save time? Any tips or any tricks specifically?
Hmm. I would say I think it always helps if you have the budget, right? Getting teammates. You can put teammates inside your account. Once you go to your settings, you can add teammates to really go in and help you with those tasks of, searching for those lead lists, of being able to go in and market towards those homeowners or be able to follow up with them, right? As you can see here with team, you can create your team. Another way of minimizing time through that workflow is, again, going into that property details page and utilizing the PropStream assistant, because that's really going to help you ask those questions you need to ask about the particular property or lead, and you can just get that information right away versus you having to go in through all those tabs manually. So I would say those two for sure.
Amazing, Ari. Thank you so much for your time. That's been a great presentation. Everyone, we are going to take a very short 3-minute break. Next up, we have Merinda Garber from Sell to Rent. Please wait until we start this session again. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, y'all.
And now we are back. I would like to welcome Merinda. She is the VP of Sales at Sell to Rent, where she leads the team of connecting homeowners and real estate agents with investors nationwide through their sale leaseback model. She started investing at 19 and later pursued a career that led her to years of successful experience in the real estate industry. Merinda today works with homeowners nationwide who are facing financial challenges to help access their equity and reduce financial pressure while creating win win solutions for the investors involved as well. She is also a licensed realtor and is bringing always hands on experience and expertise to everything she does. Welcome, Merinda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'm going to go over some things about Saltaren, and we're going to have a Q&A afterwards to answer any of your questions. And may all of you be having a wonderful day so far. I'm going to share my screen with you. Caro, can you see that? Did it appear?
Yes, I can see it.
Oh, all right. I'm going to just be walking you guys through what Saltrent does, what we can do, and how we perform for investors, and what we're doing nationwide for the real estate market and homeowners who really need some help that they didn't really think that there were any other options available to them. But we've really been able to help connect sellers and buyers together. And that's really what we do here at Saltrent with our platform. A little bit about me. I bought my first rental property when I was 19 years old. I've been working a lot throughout my life, and I saved a lot of money when I was a teenager and decided that it was necessary for me not to rent a place because I was like, renting is not something that I wanted to keep doing. So I wanted to make a purchase. So I bought my first property and I was living there and also renting some of my rooms out. And I was able to pay that property off very quickly. And then I just got in habit of doing more of that. I have a lot of understanding of really working with emotional type of cells, which equals the real estate market. It's all about emotions. So I have a really good understanding with sellers and making those connections with them, and also with investors from a standpoint of what they need, what they're looking for, and really what's going to start building their portfolio. So I really enjoy working both sides of the seller world and also the investor world. I also just don't like doing traditional real estate. I love the fast pace of working with problematic things such as foreclosures and a lot of rising debt that sellers might have and going through bankruptcy or very challenging situations such as divorce, and also the pace of it. It moves very quick and it's really up my alley. So I really enjoy putting those aspects together and connecting a seller who may have a situation to an investor who's ready to purchase and pull the trigger and help him or her grow their portfolio. I'm really focused on providing strategic and practical solutions for both parties. And then I'm really passionate about helping those sellers who really truly need it. And it's very genuine. And that's really the message that we have at Celtran, is that we want to help as many homeowners that we possibly can, and also investors, and just connecting the two of them together. So, what is a residential leaseback? I'm not sure how many of you have invested in that type of strategy before, but we can help you get a better understanding of what it is and if that type of purchase will work for you as an investor. So, what we do here at Celtrent, we're a platform connecting sellers who are nationwide to investors. And so it creates a solution for everybody where an investor is looking for off market properties. We are that platform that has the inventory. And then we also have creative ways for sellers to stay in their home after the purchase from the investor where they are staying as a tenant. So it's a situation in which everybody wins. And And what are we seeing right now? What's the current landscape looking like out there? And some of you may have your temperature on it and really know what's going on at this point. But we're seeing right now at Sell to Rent the rise of foreclosures, and it's happening across the nation. There's some markets that are performing um, with higher foreclosures. And Florida happens to be one of those. Georgia, California, there's several of them. The Sun Belt states, North Carolina, some people we know that I've actually sold homes to in Florida. They were like, we can't afford the cost of living here. We're going to go to North Carolina. Well, now some things shifted and changed in North Carolina, and a lot of sellers are underwater with their mortgages also in some different states, and just rising issues. People have lost their jobs. Their incomes have been washed away. Maybe they have a medical situation, they've lost their job. There's just many situations that sellers are facing, and we can really help bridge that gap from a seller losing their home and being able to have the capacity to get them to stay in their home. So we see Florida had a really high rate, with about 27% increase of housing units making foreclosure filing. And then South Carolina was right behind it. And then it was surprising to me that Indiana was also in that same situation, and then Delaware following suit. So, what does it look like for a seller that's in foreclosure? Well, it doesn't look too great from a financial aspect. They probably don't have a great credit score. They probably have a poor payment history. And it's really challenging for them to have other means of, say, access to other funds by getting a HELOC or getting a refinance done on their property. So they need alternative solutions because those traditional means are not going to work. So most lenders are not going to refi a delinquent seller or a homeowner. Credit scores are really important when you're trying to apply for a loan. So if you don't have a credit score of above 620, you're pretty much out of the water of getting an additional loan. So right now we see that about 70% of homeowners are sitting on really low legacy interest rates, which are below 4%. So also, it just doesn't make sense for them to refi because they would be paying a higher amount than their mortgage currently is. And they're not really able to afford that right now. So, what does that mean? It means that homeowners are really being burdened with additional costs. I was reading an article last week where in the state of Colorado, insurance rates from 2020 to 2026 have increased 100%. That's an astronomical amount. And there's some other states like Iowa that are following suit. So not only are sellers becoming delinquent in their on their mortgages, they're also really struggling to find ways to just pay their um, their debt that they owe every month or every year if it's their property taxes or however they pay that. Also, we're seeing homeowner associations costs rising, and there's special assessments that need done with some of these homeowners associations. So it doesn't really make sense sometimes for a seller to keep their home or a homeowner to keep their home. So it might be better for them to actually sell their property. So we're seeing homeowners having increased costs of, if they're behind in their mortgage, their insurance, their property taxes, their HOA fees. So they just keep doubling. And then we have a lot of seniors that, they're homeowners, but they're no longer really able to really manage the property anymore by themselves and taking care of their property. And they're spending so much more of their money on property maintenance and extra bills that they just see that it's just not a fit for them to be a homeowner anymore. So how does that fit into a residential leaseback that we perform here at Sell to Rent? Well, it really makes a lot of sense when somebody
Your call
has
may be recorded or transcribed by us or our service providers for system and quality training.
just give me a minute here. All right, sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button. So how does a sell leaseback really relate to what we do here? Well, a sell leaseback can help a homeowner get out of all the behind payments that they're making or that they're not making that they need to make, all of the burden of maybe property repairs that they just no longer can make or afford, getting outside of the homeowners association, their taxes, their insurance, and they actually sell their property to an investor, and they are really equity rich and cash poor. So that means that all of their equity is just tied up in their home. They need access to that. So we can facilitate a lease back for them where the seller is going to maintain immediate equity from their home, but they also get to stay there. So they're not moving out. They don't have moving costs. So they're staying put, and then they're just occupying the property. A buyer loves this because the seller is very familiar with the home, and a lot of sellers actually take a lot of pride in their home, and they love their home and they want to stay there. They just can't financially support it. So through the sale leaseback, the seller is staying put, the title is transferred over to the buyer or the investor, who now becomes the landlord and the seller becomes the tenant. It's very easy operationally. We've done hundreds of these across the nation. So we would love to invite you to explore a sale leaseback option versus just, trying to find an exit strategy that might not work for you from maybe doing a traditional, maybe fix and flip. This is a great way for an investor to accumulate additional doors and actually have amazing tenants in place. And so, what do we do? I kind of touched on this a little bit before, but we're operational nationwide in all 50 states. And what we do is we're a platform that has many, many sellers that come to our platform. They are interested in selling their home, but yet they want to relinquish home ownership. However, they want to stay in their home as a renter. And so our platform connects those types of sellers to a network of investors who are looking to increase their portfolio and make purchases for LTRs, for long-term rentals. And so this helps with the seller in their situation of needing to sell their home, and then the buyer also needing to increase their portfolio. So it creates, income producing properties from day one for investors, and that's why it's very attractive for our investors. And as I mentioned, we are operational in all 50 states. Some of the top states that we transact in, of course, are Florida, because that's where we're headquartered. Our neighboring sister state, Georgia. For some reason, Texas really loves leasebacks, and we love doing leasebacks in Texas. We've seen an exponential growth also in Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Also, the Midwest. Missouri is also a big popping state for us too, where the residential leasebacks are really working very well. And then you may ask, like, why would people want to do this? Why would a homeowner actually choose to sell their home and stay in it? There's many reasons why they want to do that. I think first and foremost is really important is that somebody really wants to unlock their equity. As I mentioned, they might be really cash rich through their equity. They have a lot of equity sitting there, but they're really cash poor. They don't have cash just in their bank account that they can have access to. They need to liquidate that. So number one, that's first and foremost. The second part is that somebody may not really want to leave their home. It's maybe not the right time. In real estate, we know is all about timing. So if we can coordinate that the right time for somebody, that they can actually stay there, fulfill their needs. Perhaps, somebody has school age children. They don't want to uproot the family. maybe it's an elderly couple who need a lot of medical attention and treatment. They don't want to move. They want to stay close and stay put next to their hospitals and doctors. Um, this really works for them. Or maybe there's a divorced couple. Somebody has to get that divorce decree fulfilled and transfer of assets and splitting those equally. That could also be a reason why people use us. I've also had several conversations with homeowners who are opportunistic and they're entrepreneurs and they don't want to have to take out another mortgage or another loan and pay that money back. They have a lot of equity sitting in their property. So they've used their property to position themselves to start a new venture, whether it's a new business or something that they wanted to fulfill. They've really been able to do that through our sale leaseback platform. And a lot of sellers are just, they're tired of being homeowners. They're just like, you know what? I'm over it. I'm aging. I no longer want the burden of just paying property taxes, insurance, making the updates to my home. I'm just over it. I would just love to stay here and not have to have that responsibility. So a lot of people just, they relinquish that. They get to stay in their home and enjoy it. And they become a tenant and they're happy. They're happy about that. And a lot of times, we can actually just sell their property faster than more traditional means. We're not posting the property on MLS. We're not just praying that we put it on MLS and that it's going to sell. We actually have a strategic marketing approach and how we're going to reach our investors and how we're actually going to fulfill something in a shorter time frame than a lot of other agents may do so. And I can rightfully say that I'm an agent myself and I've worked with several agents who just have that method. I'm going to put it on MLS. I'm not going to really market the property. People will come to me, and that doesn't really happen, especially when an agent's voicemails box is full. How is anybody ever going to get a hold of somebody when the agent doesn't even respond? So those are some things that we have, frustration levels with sellers that they've told us like, hey, I've tried to sell my house traditionally. The agent was not responsive. They just didn't do the things that I needed done and my house didn't sell. It's been on the market for 165 days and it didn't get much traction. So what type of properties do we actually work with? Well, we work with single family properties that are nationwide. So we have single family homes, townhomes, condos. We want to really work with lot sizes that are under an acre. And we prefer that the homes are built after 1920 or they've been completely renovated to, renovation standards from the electrical and plumbing standards have been updated since, 1920. And then really we can work with properties that over $1 million. It just really depends on the market, such as like if you're in Oregon, Washington, um, California, of course, $1 million property looks a lot different than a property in Ohio for $1 million. So, dependent on where the market is and where that property is located, it can be a higher threshold than $1 million. And then, why, as an investor, would you want to work with us? I can give you thousands of reasons, but I'll tell you the most popular or the best reasons why investors really like working with us is that you have access to properties that you wouldn't traditionally have. We have a lot of homeowners coming to us for various reasons, as I mentioned. So you're going to get access to properties that you wouldn't other places. And we really try to match you and what you're buying from your buy box to actually have that make sense to present properties to you of what you're really looking for from your criteria. And of course, because we're selling off market, it is going to be discounted. It's not going to be at a full market retail value price. Our market is for off market properties. And that's another reason why investors come to us. They are looking for great deals, and we can actually help them fulfill that with um, their requests. Also, a lot of times our sellers actually want to be a long-term tenant, which is amazing if you have a long-term portfolio, a long-term rental portfolio. It makes perfect sense because you don't have to constantly have a tenant vacate and then and then get another renter that you have no idea who they are. You don't know if they're going to be paying the rent. We actually do a lot of vetting with the seller and buyer both. So it is a true match. We also have sellers who typically want to renew the lease after the lease expires, and they want to immediately have renewals. So we see a lot of that. And that's why that's very attractive for investors because of those reasons. And then many of our properties are really, um, they're in really pristine condition because a lot of the sellers have really taken care of them. So investors come to us because they can get a property where they don't have to do major repairs to them. Not all of our properties are in that condition, but the majority of them are. We have really nice assets that come to us that are very attractive to investors because they know that they're purchasing something. And we actually do some screening on the property where you're going to get a pre-title search, so we know what's associated and attached to that property, as well as a light inspection. So we can hand that off to you, and you have a property packet available to you as an investor that you can actually go through to see if this is actually a fit for you. And then we also provide different financing options available. We can connect you with lenders if needed. We can actually, understand what your strategies are and how you like to purchase to really get, are you buying and holding? Are you actually going to um, equity strip the property and refinance later? We want to understand what your long term goals are so we can really fulfill what you're looking for. We want to grow with our investors. We don't want to just do you buy once and you leave us. We actually have built really great relationships with our investors, and we have many repeat investors purchasing time and time again. And they actually requesting, hey, when do you have another property available here? We really love working with you. We've actually even helped investors expand in other areas that they probably wouldn't have done, but we've had really great properties and assets that were income producing and cash flowing from day one, that they're like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. We are comfortable expanding with you because you've provided such great inventory to us. And then, really, something that's very important here is that we don't charge our investors to work with us. There's no fee for you to use our platform. So that's very attractive. And then we are actually going to assign you an investor advisor. You're going to have your own person that's dedicated to you from sell to rent, that's going to lead you and help you every step of the way. We actually have our own in-house transaction coordinator that's going to help you collect and gather what you need to really make a really smooth closing process for you, because we believe in um, the things that are making your lives simple and easier is going to help both of us along the way. And then, really, how do we support an investor? Well, we're really going to help you source off market deals. We're going to provide underwriting that makes sense. There's nothing worse than being an investor and you're working with somebody and they have these crazy, crazy ARV values, or they have crazy comps that just don't even make sense. And so we're never going to do that to you. We're going to actually provide you with the best data that we have and share that data with you because we want you to be confident in your purchase. So again, we're going to do the pre-title work up front to know that there aren't any issues with title. We're going to also do a pre-inspection report for you and have that outlined so you know exactly what you're getting into with this property. We also encourage you to do your own third-party inspection. We can actually help you coordinate that. Our transaction coordinator can get you access to the property. We also encourage you to do a walkthrough of the property just to make sure property's in said condition that, from the property pictures, from the inspection report that we provided, we want to provide you all the access that you need to make that decision. Also, we have access to many different lenders. We know who can turn things very fast for you, as well as title companies. We have great relationships with a lot of local title companies that do amazing work and can turn something very fast. So we've already been there, done that, and vetted a lot of players in this industry. So we can actually give you guidance to help you make a really smooth transaction. And then we're going to give you regular updates and let you know where this transaction is from the start, from us, the contract executing to the closing and wire distributions. And these are just real experience of reviews that we've had. Many of our investors have been very pleased working with us, and we're very happy and proud that they were able to give us such nice reviews. And we want to keep continuing that type of relationship with our investors. And then, how do you work with us? Well, first of all, you've got to register with us. You've got to register as an investor and get registered into our investor community. And you can visit our website at www.selltorrent.com/invest. I encourage you to fill out the investor form. That's going to have us get an understanding of where you're currently purchasing, what you're purchasing, what those thresholds look like. So then we can match you with properties that really fit your buy box. And then once we have that, we're going to start giving you an access to our inventory where you can start seeing that. And then we also have our platform, if you haven't seen that already, on our property page through our website. We have a marketplace there where you can actually go look at the properties. You can connect with us. You can put in an offer. So there's many ways that you can do that. You can also call us. You can schedule an appointment with one of our investor advisors so we understand what you're looking for and what you want to do, and really help you explore different opportunities that maybe you didn't think you had access to, or even markets that you really didn't consider. And we can really give you an overview of what we can do for you. And then you can scan this code here. We can keep that up, Caro. My name again is Miranda. This is my email address, miranda@selltorrent.com. And we welcome you to call us. We do have investor advisors ready to take your calls. So you can call us at 800-954-6373. If you have any inquiries, you're curious, you want to know more about what we do, we want to be available for you and take those calls for you.
Thank you so much, Miranda. We've got a couple of questions for you on the chat.
Absolutely.
The first one is from an ROI perspective. Do you guys recommend this over a fix and flip?
Do you want me to answer that, or are we having the panel answer that, or?
This is for you. We'll have the
This is for
panel
me.
after you
Okay,
answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the question again. What did you say? It was something about ROI. Could you maybe put it up for me, please?
From an ROI perspective, do you recommend this over a fix and flip?
Thank you, Duke, for asking this question. Duke, this really depends on your market and what you're looking to do. You know, we've seen a lot of investors come to us and ask us to actually sell their properties that they fixed and flipped because the market just isn't putting out what they invested in the property. We see this happening a lot. And it depends, you know, the longer that you hold on to a property and you're trying to do a flip, the more in cost, you know, carrying costs that you have monthly. I go by 100-day rule. You know, by the time you purchase the property and by the time you can do the repairs, you better make that 100-day flip. Otherwise, you've got a lot of carrying costs that you're just accumulating month over month. And we see this happen with a lot of investors. They get in trouble because they misjudge the market, or maybe they actually have additional costs involved. Like, you know, you get inside of a property and as an investor, you start realizing the eyesore after you start ripping the Band-Aid off. You know, there's a repair, and then after that repair, there's something else that gets exposed that also needs critical repair. So from my perspective, I actually would go for a long-term rental or a buy and hold.
Great. Grace wants to know what level of discount below market value can she typically achieve when purchasing these off-market properties?
Great question, Grace. Something that's really important is, you know, cap rates. We want to know from an income producing property what that rent threshold or what that rent's going to be. What is the Do you have to take a loan out for this property? Do you have to finance it? What are those carrying costs for you from, um, if you have to finance it, what that loan or mortgage is going to look like monthly? What's the carrying cost for insurance, taxes, HOA, and anything you need to budget for repairs? So you need to, understand number one, financing or cash. What do you have the bandwidth to put through? And then, really, from a cap rate perspective, if something in, like, let's just say Ohio has a 10% cap rate, that's that could be a really great margin for you. And also, what's the equity that you're buying into a property? Like, you want to take into those considerations. If we have a property that's off market and we're selling it at a discount, it's valued at a $500,000 property, but it's selling at 350,000. You're immediately walking into $150,000 of equity on some of these properties. Now, that's just one example, but we have to have an understanding of where you're purchasing, how you're purchasing, in order to match you with exact properties so you can actually meet your cap rates or make sure that you are covering your carrying costs for that property, because we want you to have an income producing property from day one. That's the goal.
Okay, thank you so much, Marinda. We unfortunately ran out of time. So if anyone else has any more questions for Marinda, please feel free to reach out to the Sell to Rent team. We are now going to start our expert panel. Alex will now have the floor, and we would like to welcome everyone else as well. Ari from PropStream and Anish from National REIA as well.
Can you guys hear me? Cool.
Yes, we hear you.
Yes.
Let's wrap this up. I wanted to kind of ping you guys and get your expert opinion on just 3 or 4 short questions from, our own different angles. So I want to start with kind of like the sourcing question, like where are people actually transacting right now? Where are investors transacting right now? So Anish, why don't you go first? This is all our personal view, nothing cemented down. More of just like what we're already seeing from our different angles, right? So you get to sit at the national level, but you're also in South Florida. Where do you where are deals happening right now? Is it, you could be geographies, metros, states, cities? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I still see a lot of people buying in Florida, Georgia also, the Midwest, Michigan, depending on what your taste is, meaning it could be a little bit rough when it comes to it. Not really much in like California or New York. If you really, or even Washington State, I think it just depends on the landlord laws. The tenant laws are different in each state. I have some people in New Jersey as investors don't like it because it's taken them over a year and a half to evict people. Same thing with Washington State. So depending on if the state is landlord friendly, like Florida is great, obviously Georgia, Texas, depending on if it's a red or blue state, we are seeing a lot of movement. And again, in Florida, it's a little bit different too, with a lot of international money coming from South America as their economies change also. So I think it just really depends, and then within the categories, it's also different, whether it's luxury or not. I could tell you with friends that are realtors, the 10 million and up market in South Florida is crushing it. 1 to 5 million, not so great. I could tell you personally, less than 600,000 is fantastic.
Cool. Great perspective. Ari, how about you from like datas and your angle? Any markets that excite you? Any markets that you see more transactions happen?
Yeah, at least in terms of the perspective of being, a demo specialist, working with a lot of these investors and going to these events, I feel like a hot topic is right now is Texas. I really do see a lot of people, even from, cross country, investing in properties in Austin, in Houston, in San Antonio, which is my home base. I can see it firsthand, just the rapid expansion of even just vacant land being bought up, right? And having those turn into those, those units that we talk about as turning into landlords and going in for those rentals. So a lot of fix and flipping, a lot of wholesaling, a lot of construction happening down here in Texas for sure.
Miranda, how about you from perspective? What are we seeing in our platform?
I think Columbus, Ohio suburbs are really sexy. We see a lot of professionals, um, very affluent neighborhoods there. They become like because of Ohio State universities there. That's a great demographics of people and mix that live there. And so housing is still very affordable there, but yet investors are now seeing like we have out of state investors wanting to purchase in Ohio, and it's really hard to actually keep properties there, especially in the Midwest, like Anisha's stating. It's just one of those neighborhoods. Upper Arlington is a great area, and it's still very affordable, and you can get a nice return on some of those properties in the Columbus, Ohio area. So if I was an investor and I had to grow a new market, I would probably choose that area.
Cool. I'll throw in a wild one. Kansas. Every single time we see a property in Kansas City, LA, anything like that, like a fan, it's like it just flies. So there's not a lot of transactions. There's a lot of affluent investors there, and it's crazy how we've seen that little thing stick out for us. Just left field. Marina, I'll give you the next one so you can just keep going. So something that I've been paying attention to is the steady increase of foreclosures. It's not skyrocketing up like the news is saying yet. It's small ticks. It's in percent, it's high compared to non-existent, but it is ticking up. So there's like this two tectonic plates crashing right now, which is foreclosures are coming up, but a lot of people are sitting a lot of equity. And even when we see people in foreclosure come to us, they have equity. And it's like, this isn't 2008 where if you're getting foreclosed, you're upside down, you walk away. It's like we're seeing people with equity. What's your take on that? What is you guys' take on that? Marina, why don't you go first? Anything that sticks out for you?
Yeah, we are seeing an uptick in that, and there's many people that they're even also being foreclosed on for something very minimal at their homeowners association. Their homeowners association has decided to even file foreclosure on them for. I actually talked to a seller. He was living in his property with his father. His father passed away, and his father had access to pay on the homeowners association portal, and he didn't have access to it, and he kept missing the payments because the HOA is like, hey, you can't access this. We're not giving you the credentials or whatever. And so something so menial as making a payment in a portal was getting him foreclosed. And so we see it with not just that, but like even tax liens are causing foreclosures on people, and it's just rising as people even they're losing their jobs. There's a whole transition going on in the job market, and they're becoming more and more behind, and they're becoming more reliant on their credit cards. And so something has to give. Something has to stop being paid. Well, am I going to like keep paying for food for my family, or am I going to not pay the credit card bill or not pay my mortgage because I need to survive? And we see an uptick in this, and this is just going to be increasing until there's something changes.
Ari, anything you're seeing in the data or anything from you guys' angle?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that in terms of having that situation rise, right? That they're building this equity and or having this high equity and yet still falling into those foreclosure situations or going down that path. And I think like for software like PropStream, we do have that data to be able to see those little yellow flags right before it comes a full blown out foreclosure. And I think what our users are doing right now is that they're able to go in, use those search filters of looking for those high equity homeowners, and for example in this case use the foreclosure factor, which can showcase the likelihood that a homeowner will enter foreclosure within the next 12 months. So that's something that they can utilize to go in and offer those solutions. In this case, creative solutions of, the seller, the subject to, or the seller leaseback, all those different creative solutions to help one another be able to get out of that distress before it turns into a full-blown loss for that homeowner.
Niche, anything from you?
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Miranda is saying. Is same thing is with rising costs of home ownership, and the homeowners are smarter. What I mean by that, they have YouTube and other ways to figure out that, hey, the foreclosure is going to last. It might take a year or two, right? So they could make the insurance payments or whatever those payments are, and they're sitting in it for a year or two. What they don't realize, they have all this equity a lot of times, meaning, hey, I'm not making payments. I'm getting letters from the attorneys, investors. They're not magically coming up with 30 or 50 or $60,000 to reinstate that loan. And so that's why I think a lot of people have that equity in there and they're in foreclosure.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I second what you were saying and what Miranda was saying, seeing it from the ground level. Yeah. One final question. I'm gonna throw a curveball, you guys. We've a lot talked about expenses and things are changing. I want to talk about boomers and older people. So we're seeing a big percent of older people starting to try and list their homes because they have a lot of equity. We personally, when we talk to a big part of our demographics that we interact with, Celtran, they want to enjoy their life and they want to enjoy the equity, right? And now they're starting, there's a lot of them coming to market at the same time. And there's a big supply shift changing into them listing their homes. I need from the ground level, have you interacted with any of these? Have you dealt with any of these people? Give us a story. Like, what's your take on the older generation?
So it's kind of interesting. I agree with you. So luckily, I live in a high-rise building, luxury building in downtown Fort Lauderdale, and there's a ton of boomers that's exactly what they did. They sold their house. They want to be, living in the urban lifestyle, great restaurants, and walking through. And they're saying is, they thought their kids would want it, and they don't, right? So now they're coming to the reality that, okay, that's fine. Maybe I'm not going to get as much equity. Let me just move out, right? And I already make enough money in my 401k, all my other investments, that it's not as big of a deal. Maybe I had $1 million in equity and now I only cashed out 800,000. My lifestyle is a lot more important. So if you I don't want to say beat them down, you just show them what's really happening. And there's some logic to it when you show them, if you're using like data from PropStream of what's going on in neighborhoods with their neighbors. Not everyone has equity. And some people they thought they had equity until you start seeing the pre-foreclosure and you're saying, oh, they got that new Mercedes and how's their house in foreclosure? So, having that kind of data, they're coming to reality a little bit.
All right, from in your software, do you guys have age filters or things like that? Or you guys see any movement when it comes to older people listing homes? What are you seeing?
So with the filters, we do have senior owners that is going to help you or the users be able to find those niche listings of those senior owners, right? The baby boomers, anyone who fits that category of having either a senior tax exemption, they've been living at the house for 25 plus years. So that is something that, again, our users are able to go in, they're able to find those niche lists. And how Anish was saying, look at the demographics, look what's going on in the neighborhoods. Is it something that, is it an area that other boomers and senior owners are taking place in? Are they leaving? What are those particular data sets that are going to be important and essentially vital to your property analysis? Because it does take precedent over, not just the property itself, but the details of the neighborhood as well when you're making those investment decisions.
Love it.
And
Miranda, take us
yeah,
home. Anything that we're experiencing?
yeah. Well, also from the the purchase and lease back standpoint, from that type of demographics, from the aging population or the boomers, it really gives seniors the cash that they need because they have so much equity built into their home. If it's not paid off, it's, there's so much cash sitting there, and they're wanting to access that cash. And then it also, from the investor standpoint, because a lot of these seniors, they want to stay in this property for a while. Like Anish said, their children do not want the home. They just, their kids are like, yeah, I'm over it. I don't want the house. I don't want to do anything with it. So this lease back works really well because for an investor, we know that these seniors are going to have really predictable tenancy because they want to stay there for a long time, and they're prepaying large sums of rent up front. So that makes it really less risk adverse for an investor. And so that's what we're seeing with the aging population. They want to stay there. They've been great tenants, and we can simplify that for, the seller and the buyer and make that connection.
Cool. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate the time. Thank you for, being where you are and hanging out with us for a couple hours. Thank you. You guys could drop off. I'll close it out, but I'll send you guys thank you notes. And thanks for bringing some knowledge bombs. We learned a lot.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great
y'all.
day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay, I'll take us home. So overall, thank you everybody who joined. Definitely the panel, but I wanted to kind of restate what we learned today, which is, we believe that the market hasn't crashed. It definitely froze, and there's a lot of opportunities out there that we're seeing. We think that a lot of the investors that are active today, are going to look back in a couple of years and say, oh my God, good thing that I took some risk when I did, because there's a lot of this competition on the market. Before we close, do us a favor. If you haven't registered as an investor yet, we'll drop the link in the chat. Register. It's free. You'll get a lot of value out of it. And then follow us on all our different social channels. There's a lot of content that we put out on a daily and weekly basis. And hopefully you can learn along, our experience when we put that content out. And yeah, hopefully all the investors that showed up got a little sharper. And hopefully we keep doing these and we enjoy this time together. After that, later, everybody.